The girl says to the billionaire, "Hi, sir, my mother has a ring just like yours." And the billionaire. The soft chime of the jewelry store doorbell echoed through the quiet, elegant boutique. The air smelled of polished wood and expensive perfume, the kind of place where time seemed to slow down, where every sparkle of a gemstone carried a story. Behind the glass cases, diamonds and sapphires gleamed under the warm golden lights. Waiting for someone to claim them, a little girl stepped inside, her wide, curious eyes scanning the glittering display cases. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old, her brown curls bouncing with each step. Clutching a small, worn-out teddy bear in one arm, she wandered toward the counter, drawn by the dazzling jewelry. But it wasn't the diamonds that caught her attention. It was the tall man standing beside her. Sebastian King, a name whispered in elite circles, known for power, influence, and a staggering fortune. A billionaire who built an empire brick by brick, luxury hotels, towering skyscrapers, real estate ventures that stretched across continents. He was the kind of man who turned dreams into reality. But he himself lived in a world of strict control, calculated decisions, and a heart long buried under layers of steel. He wasn't the type to shop for jewelry. In fact, he rarely stepped into places like this at all. But today was different. His fingers held a diamond ring, turning it slowly under the bright showroom lights. It wasn't just any ring. It was an exact replica of one he had lost years ago. A ring that once belonged to someone he loved deeply. Someone he had tried to forget, lost in thought. He barely noticed the little girl beside him until a small, polite voice broke the silence. "Hi, sir," she said, tilting her head up at him with innocent curiosity. "My mother has a ring just like yours." Sebastian's fingers stiffened around the band. His sharp blue eyes snapped toward the girl, his heart skipping a beat. "Your mother." For a moment, the world around him blurred. The noise of the store faded. The carefully constructed walls around his past threatened to crumble. There was no way. The original ring had been unique, one of a kind. The only person who had ever worn it was impossible. He forced himself to breathe, to shake off the ridiculous thought creeping into his mind. He had accepted the loss years ago, buried it along with the memories that still haunted him. And yet, something about this little girl's innocent declaration sent a shiver down his spine. "What's your name?" he asked carefully. "Mia," she said with a bright smile, swinging her teddy bear back and forth. "I came here with my mum. She's over there." Sebastian followed her small pointing finger toward the back of the store, and then everything stopped. A woman stood by the necklace display, running her fingers over a delicate chain. The soft lighting cast a glow on her face, highlighting the features he thought he'd never see again. His breath caught in his throat. Emily. The world seemed to slow as recognition crashed over him like a tidal wave. It couldn't be. He felt like he was staring at a ghost, yet she was right there. The woman who had vanished from his life years ago. The woman he had loved. The woman he thought was gone forever. And on her finger, the ring. Sebastian's pulse hammered in his ears. 1,000 questions exploded in his mind, but none of them could form into words. His carefully built world, his tightly controlled life was slipping through his fingers. Why was she here? Why had she never come back? And if she was here now, what else had she kept from him? Mia suddenly tugged at his sleeve, looking up at him with wide, innocent eyes. "Sir, are you okay? You look like you saw a ghost." Sebastian inhaled sharply, forcing himself to regain his composure. He couldn't afford to lose control, not now. He had to be sure. "Mia," he said, his voice quieter now, almost careful. What's your mother's name?" The little girl beamed, completely unaware of the storm raging inside him. "Emily," she said happily. The name hit him like lightning. Sebastian's grip on the ring tightened as he turned back toward the woman who had once held his heart, who had disappeared without a trace. And now she was just a few feet away, with his ring and her daughter, a daughter who looked far too familiar, a daughter who was... His breath hitched. No, it couldn't be. But deep down, before he even asked the question, he already knew the answer. Sebastian felt his world shift beneath him. His fingers, still wrapped around the ring, had gone cold. Every logical part of his mind told him this was a coincidence, that it was impossible. And yet, as he stared at the little girl before him, something deeper, something instinctive, told him otherwise. Mia, Emily's daughter. His heart pounded. His mind reeled with questions he wasn't ready to ask. Not yet. Before he could stop himself, his feet moved. Slowly at first, as if afraid the vision before him might disappear. But Emily didn't vanish. She stood there, completely unaware of his presence. Absorbed in whatever memory the delicate necklace in her hands stirred within her, Sebastian stopped just a few steps away. Emily. The name barely left his lips, but she heard it. Her fingers froze. Her shoulders stiffened. It was as if the entire world had gone silent in that moment. Slowly, almost hesitantly, she turned, and then, their eyes met. A sharp breath left her lips. As she took a step back, clutching the necklace, as if it were the only thing keeping her steady, her face paled, her eyes wide with disbelief, with shock, and something else, something deeper. Sebastian. His name hung in the air between them, filled with years of unanswered questions, buried emotions, and a past neither of them had been ready to face. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, in the smallest, most fragile voice, Emily whispered, "You're here." Sebastian swallowed hard. His emotions were a mess, a storm of anger, confusion, and something dangerously close to longing. "You never came back," he said, his voice low, steady, but edged with something raw. "You just disappeared." Emily's lips parted, but no words came. Guilt flickered in her eyes, her grip on the necklace tightening. "I had no choice," she finally said, her voice barely audible. Sebastian's jaw tensed. No choice. Two words that meant nothing without an explanation. He had spent years searching, wondering, questioning why the woman he loved had vanished without a trace. He had accepted, painfully, that he would never get those answers. But now she was standing right in front of him, and he wasn't letting her go without them. His eyes flickered down to her left hand. The ring, his pulse hammered in his ears. "Where did you get that?" Emily flinched. She glanced down, as if she had forgotten it was even there. Then slowly, she looked up at him. It was a gift. Sebastian's blood ran cold. A gift? From who? When? Before he could say anything, Mia's small voice broke the tension. "Mommy," she said, tugging at Emily's dress. "That man has the same ring as you." Emily's breath hitched. Sebastian took a slow step forward. "Is she mine?" Emily's eyes filled with something unreadable. Fear, pain, a truth she had never wanted to reveal. She hesitated. Then, in the quietest voice, she whispered, "Yes." Sebastian felt the ground vanish beneath him. His world, his carefully built life, shattered. In an instant, Mia, his daughter, the little girl who had smiled up at him with wide, innocent eyes, the little girl who had unknowingly held the key to a truth he had been denied for years. His throat tightened. His mind struggled to catch up with the reality before him. You knew, he said, his voice quieter now, but no less intense. You knew, and you never told me. Emily's eyes shone with unshed tears. I wanted to. I tried. Sebastian's chest burned with emotions too heavy to name. Then why didn't you? Emily swallowed hard. Her gaze flickered toward Mia, then back to him. Because I was protecting her, she whispered. Sebastian stiffened. From me? Emily hesitated. And in that moment, Sebastian realized, whatever the truth was, it wasn't as simple as he had thought. Something had happened. Something bigger, and Emily had been carrying the weight of it all alone, but not anymore. Because now he knew, and he wasn't walking away. Sebastian's chest tightened. The weight of Emily's words pressed down on him, thick with meaning. Protecting Mia. From what? From him? Or from something bigger? Something he hadn't yet uncovered. Emily glanced at their daughter, her expression softening for just a moment, before she met Sebastian's gaze again. There was so much emotion in her eyes, fear, guilt, and something deeper. Love. Not just for Mia, but for him too. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered. Sebastian ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. Then why did you? His voice wasn't angry, now just tired, worn down by years of unanswered questions and the crushing realization that he had missed so much. Emily swallowed, glancing around as if making sure no one was listening. Then, after a long pause, she said, because someone was watching. Sebastian stilled. Emily took a shaky breath. The day I left. I didn't do it because I wanted to. I did it because I had to. Because someone made sure I had no other choice. Sebastian felt his stomach twist. Who? Emily hesitated, then spoke a name he hadn't expected. His uncle. The realization sent a chill down his spine. His uncle had been a powerful man, involved in business dealings that often blurred the line between legal and illegal. But what could he have possibly wanted from Emily? I didn't understand it at first, Emily continued. But after I found out I was pregnant, I got a message, a warning. If I didn't disappear, if I told you the truth, something bad would happen. Sebastian's fists clenched. She had been threatened, forced to leave, alone, pregnant, and he had never known. His mind reeled with anger, but it wasn't directed at Emily. It was at the man who had stolen everything from him. Years he could never get back. Moments he had been robbed of. Why didn't you tell me sooner? He asked, his voice tight. I tried, she whispered. But every time I got close, something happened. I was being watched, Sebastian. And when your uncle passed away last year, I thought, maybe it was finally over. Sebastian exhaled, trying to process everything. It all made sense now. The sudden disappearance, the silence, the untraceable trail. Emily had been protecting their daughter, and in doing so, she had suffered alone, but not anymore. He looked at Mia, who was still clutching her mother's dress, her big eyes darting between them. She was innocent in all of this, yet she had unknowingly been at the center of it all. Sebastian knelt down, meeting her gaze. Hey, Mia, he said gently. Can I tell you something? She nodded slowly. I didn't know about you before today, but now that I do, I'm never letting you go. His voice wavered, thick with emotion. I promise. Mia tilted her head, studying him. Then, after a moment, she smiled. The same smile that had haunted his dreams. Emily wiped at her eyes, her breath shaky. Sebastian, he stood, reaching for her hand. You don't have to run anymore. Emily hesitated, then let out a small relieved breath as she took his hand. For years, They had been lost in the shadows of a past neither of them could control. But now, standing there together, something shifted. They weren't lost anymore. They were finally home.